just as we get ourselves settled for this evening, I want us to think about our subject matter for tonight. Tonight's wisdom talk with our wonderful guest, Nandarane. She's going to guide us on how to create a sanctuary of peace and spirituality in our homes. So we're going to learn practical tips on how you can arrange your space, how you can incorporate meaningful rituals, and how fostering an environment that supports inner calm and mindful living is so important. So I'm really excited to get into that.
Oh, thank you, Sam.
Just give it a couple more moments. I think we've got a few more people joining in. Welcome to the UK from Reading. Crawley, not so exotic. Not had the best of days and need this so much. Abhisha, thank you for joining. I'm actually from Crawley, so I can agree and attest to it not being so exotic, but that's okay. That's okay. Thanks, Jiva, from joining from the US. Right, before we kick off, I'm going to introduce our speaker this evening, Nandarane. She's a founding head teacher for the first Avanti school. She's a consultant head teacher and works with school leaders, participates in judicial hearings. She's also a trained counselor and therapist, undertakes well-being training based on the Bhagavad-gita and the wisdom of Bhagavad-gita. And Nandarane is also a fellow at Oxford and undertook her research work on the Bhagavad-gita and how to make it accessible, which is so great because every week here at Wisdom Talks, we're always taking a new deep dive and fresh perspective and fresh new view on the wisdom of the Gita. And we're able to do that through our speakers. So thank you, Nandarane, for joining. Please, everyone, give a warm welcome to Nandarane and enjoy this evening's chat.
Thank you, Saj. I'm so delighted to be here, and thank you everyone for being here as well. Let me start off with a prayer. So wherever you are, just sort of get comfortable in your chair and notice your feet on the ground, and just start breathing through your nose and out through your mouth. And it's called the Shitali breath, where you breathe in through the nose, as I said, and then out through the mouth, almost pursing your lips, and as if you're blowing out through a straw, and this calms your nervous system. So wherever you are, whatever kind of day you've had, particularly Abhisha, however you're feeling, this is time now just to block everything out, and almost, this whole session is about nourishing yourself and creating a safe space. Now, before I do that, as you continue breathing, carry on breathing, I'm just going to do the opening prayer of gratitude. And that prayer of gratitude is all to divinity and all the teachers in the past and the present who guide us. And without their spiritual guidance, we would be lost, because trying to navigate this world, trying to understand what's truth and what's false, and what we think is going to give us happiness and what doesn't. The sages, they're here to guide us, and so we just invoke their presence. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuranmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. So, I have some questions for you before we start about what does it mean to create, or how do we create a sacred space in our house. So you can put this in the chat, and so first I'm just going to go off. Have you ever walked into a space and you don't know why, but you felt uncomfortable? It could have been a space where you might have thought, well, it actually looks a bit dodgy, and therefore I'm feeling uncomfortable. But it could also be a space that looks amazing, but when you walk in that space, you don't feel comfortable. So just fire away where you think that space was. Just share with us.
Whilst we're getting everyone to put their responses in the chat, I can tell you mine.
Yeah.
I've danced. So I've danced, done gigs all over the world, and it involved a lot of traveling to different places. And I remember one particular job. We were performing in the countryside in France, and it was like a really spooky hotel. And it wasn't nothing about the hotel itself was spooky. It was in the middle of nowhere, but every single one of us said that we felt like we had a really weird feeling about the place. We felt really unsettled there. It was quite hard to explain, but yeah, energetically we were all kind of like, oh, there's something wrong with this place. It was almost immediate, and it was amazing how everyone had that picked up on the same vibe.
Yeah, so thank you for that share, Saj, and some other things coming in. Yeah, and look, some people are saying work.
Yeah,
Abhishek is saying her first house, and then Nita is saying London Underground, definitely. Interesting, Dristi. You're saying it was a meditation center. Hospital, yes, Gita. Hospitals are often renowned, certain spaces and certain places in hospitals. Of course, the crematorium, the cemetery, car park late at night. Interesting. So, my next question actually, and it should have been the follow-up question was where and when was that? So my next question is then, I mean, I can share with you, as a child, I was picking up on spaces and energetic feeling. And I thought I was going mad because I didn't really have the words, but I had the feelings. And I think that's what we all experience, the feeling of it not feeling right. And I suppose my journey started because we moved into this house and it was owned by my mother and father-in-law and we'd purchased it. But, they always said, oh, there was a lot of arguments going on and there were just spaces in the house that, there was one particular space, you just felt somebody was watching you. Another space was where nobody wanted to sit. You had the finest sofas, the lushest, Afghan, what you call, just this, the carpet and everything was just amazing, but nobody wanted to go there. And I began to, really question. There was something that I needed to think about, because your home is got to be a place where it supports you, and it's a place that makes you feel safe and comfortable. So, this is why I went on my learning journey, and I'm absolutely fascinated with what makes a sacred space. James, you said, yeah, it's interesting. I experienced that, James, in somewhere in Highbury in Islington, the same, a chapel, but it's very interesting where, we shouldn't think that, sometimes we think sacred spaces won't have that energy, but it may do, and there may be reasons for that. So my next question to you is that, what spaces make you feel comfortable? And which are the spaces you go to where you frequently recharge yourself? Any thoughts, Saj, for yourself?
Yeah, immediately I'd say my home. Someone asked me what my favorite place in the world is once in an interview, and I said it was the sofa with my partner because that's like where I feel safe and I can recharge. But outside of home, I would say like the Soho Temple, because I live in London, is a sanctuary in the city. Because just going in and you immediately feel the peace of the room because there's such an energy. And you go out on the street and it's hustle bustle and you're back into that London energy. So that's a nice respite. The Bhaktivedanta Manor is wonderful as well, especially in the summer. Going to visit my grandmother in Leicester
Right.
is like, I feel like I can totally be my like child self again and completely open.
So that's interesting because you're saying it's about people and spaces and the environment and something that's personal to you. So that's interesting. And then a lot of people have also said gardens and nature walks, the gym, temple. Yeah, so you're clearly aware of what makes you feel comfortable and what doesn't. So my next question is to you all, how do you create a sacred space? Or how have you created a sacred space?
Whilst we're waiting for the people to decluttering, someone said that's a really good one. Decluttering, yeah. It's funny you mentioned sacred space. I was going to ask, maybe we'll get to it in a bit, but what a sacred space actually is.
Yeah.
Because I was walking with a friend earlier this afternoon. I said, we're doing this Wisdom Talks podcast. We're talking about sacred spaces. He was French, and he said, well, I'm not going to do the accent, but he said, like, what do you mean by this like sacred space? Is that space where you have to like worship a god, or you? And I said, not necessarily, not necessarily. It could be a space for you to reconnect with yourself. Like I try not to work on the sofa or work from the bed on the laptop, because those spaces, I don't want that bedroom to become a space for work, because a place for rest, and same with like switching off on the sofa. That's why I sort of keep the work on the desk or in a little study to those places, or if I go out to a coffee shop or something. So being conscious about what activities take place, I guess.
Yeah, and
Lots lots of answers coming in. Sorry.
yeah. So I have a friend, Saj, who's a feng shui expert, and she's based in Ireland, and she's very, very strict about those, exactly what you said, the demarcation of spaces, because when you're in these spaces, you're also dropping your energy as well, good and bad. I think one of the things I want to say to you, well, to the group here, is there are characteristics of uneasy spaces, and it comes back to what somebody had just said earlier. Usually they're dark, they may be dirty, disorder, clutter, unclean. It's where arguments have happened in the past, maybe in the present. It's where there are memories lingering in the ether. And of course, other characteristics, as I said earlier, was, sort of an unease feeling. You feel like somebody's watching you. It's a space where nobody wants to go, nobody wants to sit. And what is the reason for these uneasy spaces? Or what does it promote? In those spaces, unless you clear it, it promotes stress, arguments, gossip, lies, stress, unease. Somebody said to me recently, my work is full of just gossip and arguments, and it's a kind of an unsafe space. So when those kind of energies are flowing around, then of course you're going to feel stress and unease. It's a space where it promotes dissension, lack of trust, and interesting enough, compulsive and obsessive thoughts. You start a compulsive obsessive thought. If it carries on, it's kind of lingering in the ether. It's like smoke. It's there and it sits on your clothes. But this, you can't smell it. And sometimes you're not even aware of it, but it actually exists. Now, sacred spaces actually invite divinity. And in the Vedic tradition, sacred space is everywhere. It's Mother Earth. It's the it's the wind. It's where the wind flows through. It's where fire is. It's really sacred spaces where you feel peace, and the characteristics of these sacred spaces are they're simple, they're light, they're airy. There's pleasant fragrance. When I say pleasant fragrance, I don't mean synthetic fragrance, natural fragrance. Usually it's pleasing to look at, it's clean, it's orderly. Somebody said, how do I purify the room with incense? Well, I will definitely cover that in a moment.
There's been a lot of great, thank you. Please keep your comments and reflections coming in. James has said, as much as I love my children, they make my home feel chaotic and messy. I'm hoping for tips.
Yeah, and I think that's why having, which I'll cover soon, is having an altar or a sacred space where, uh, maybe the children might be able to go, but it's training the children that it's also a sacred space, but it's not a play space, and that's the space where you can just go and just be. I mean, what I would say to James is, as a busy mother, only time I got my sacred space was early in the morning before anybody got up. And that was when I could create that space for
Mm.
myself.
Mm.
Now, what kind of activities go on sacred spaces? It's really important to know this because where there is chanting, because chanting, it has a kind of a mystical, miraculous effect. It cuts the sound vibration of chanting, like high quality sound vibration, cuts through the ether. So the chanting, kirtan. There's an amazing story about Srila Prabhupada where there was an energetic presence, and nobody could get rid of it. Srila Prabhupada went, sat in that space, and just started chanting what they call the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, and all of a sudden that energy left. So, sacred music, uplifting spiritual conversations, acts of love and service, humility, cooperation, loving exchanges, sharing, feeding others, uplifting sacred activities that promote unity and love. Whereas when we are in unease spaces, it promotes dissension.
Mm.
Now, I think as you said, every part of our home can be a sacred space, but particularly having demarcations, like having an altar. Um, Within the Vedic tradition, the four pillars of freedom are cleanliness, austerity, mercy, and truthfulness. And so cleanliness is a huge part, not just our inner cleanliness, but outer cleanliness. So the kitchen and extremely clean bathrooms are really, really important because subtle energies are attracted to dirt and dirty smells. So an altar really is, you can create an altar anywhere in your house. Maybe a raised platform with photographs. When I first started my first altar, it had, pictures of deities and Srila Prabhupada. And then, an aarti tray and a bell for offering food and undertaking aarti. Now, what creates an aarti, what creates a sacred space is actually undertaking or having certain rituals in the day. One of them is aarti, and what's interesting about the aarti is the aarti. If anybody knows about aarti, you can read up on it, but I'll give you a quick whistle stop of what aarti is. It's almost like an act of worship with in a mood of reverence and gratitude, and it starts with the conch. And when you blow the conch, it often has a piercing sound, and it drives away negativity and evil energies. And then the aarti starts with the bell. The bell clears, but invites sweet energy, and the activity then of offering. Somebody said, how do you offer incense? Well, there are different ways. At the manor, when I do my pujari service, usually we do 4 to the feet, 2 to the waist, and then 7 around the body of the lordship, or whoever it is that you're worshipping. So if it's Radha Krishna, so that's how you would do it. And then, of course, the ghee lamp. Now it's interesting because in the Vedic tradition, ghee, just the act of lighting the fire, not only clears the energy, but it also, the smell of the ghee lamp clears away negativity and any depressive thoughts. Flowers, again, the flowers represent earth. And then of course offering some, in some aartis people will offer the yak tail and the peacock feather. But just doing a simple arti of incense, flower, and a ghee lamp should help to clear the spaces very quickly. Especially with incense, if you've got pleasant natural incense, just that smoke will clear and sanctify the area. I mean, some traditions, they'll use San Paulo, they'll use sage, they'll use bay leaves. But in the Indian tradition, we use incense, or some call it agarbatti. Now, the arti is also about engaging the senses. The sense of smell and hearing, touch, but it also engages with the elements, the basic elements of light, fire, air, earth. So sometimes if you've had an argument, because it does happen in the house, an argument, you've watched something that you think, I shouldn't have watched this, or a funny energy, then you can cleanse the space by burning frankincense or loban, or as I've said, other things. And a good tip is actually opening doors and windows, so that the air can flow through the house, because wind is also a purifying agent. Now, one of the things that I was brought up to do by my mother first thing in the morning is, as soon as you wake up, you open the windows, you shake your bedding. And it's really important to shake the bedding, because you're shaking off the dust, stuck, old, stale energy. So you want to shake that out. And then, of course, after you've brushed your teeth and showered or whatever, just engaging in sound vibration, chanting, reading, doing breathing exercises. Now, some of the yogis will do certain breathing exercises just to clear unstuck energy, or thought forms around them. You can also do yoga and arti, as I've explained. One of the things I do is also having water vessels by the front door, with flowers in there. And you see that at spas, but it's a very Vedic thing to do, because it invites positive energy. And if there is negative energy coming in and out, it could even be us. We've had a hard day and we've come through the door. What we want to do is just drop that energy there. So having a pot or a couple of pots of water in the entrance is really great. The other thing is having ongoing chanting and music, and just spraying Ganga water everywhere. So I'm going to stop for a moment, because I'm going to go on about creating a sacred space in your body and your mind is also about what you eat. But before I move on, is there anything you want to say, Saj? Or anything?
I was actually just making a list from some of the stuff you said, chanting, mantra music, mantra meditation, burning frankincense or incense sticks, also keeping the water vessels, having the windows open. Windows open is a big thing for me, actually, to clear out the energies. And in the morning, I like to give the bed sheets a good shake and have like fresh air flowing through the house. But no, I think if anyone has any other reflect, pranayam. Yeah, this is a good question actually from Jay, because I've noticed since I've moved to London, I don't burn ghee lamps anymore. So I burn more candles. And someone said, what's your take on using tea lights? Because I know, Vedically speaking, and in the Vedic traditions, the importance of burning a ghee candle. But
yeah, I think any flame is good, because the flame, we think it's just because there's fire, there's different types of fire, but when there's a flame and you light a candle, as long as it doesn't have pig fat in it, because sometimes we don't know what it's got in it.
Yeah.
Ghee is often quite a safe bet. Making your own ghee wicks, or even at worst, oil wicks. But candles are fine as long as you're happy with them, because what they do is they cut through and they burn negative energy in the ether. you know, you just got to be mindful just to make sure that, you know, look, in the Vedic tradition, people had something called akhandivo, which meant that it was a flame that never went out.
Someone's put that in the chat, so just
Have they?
get a bucket of ghee and job with cotton, job done.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. So there you go.
Okay.
With that.
Okay. So yeah, okay. So that was helpful. Thank you for answering that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think if anyone wants to unmute and give their reflections or share or ask any questions, you're more than welcome to as well. This is the chat is popping off, which is good. What oh sorry, we might be diverging a little bit, but someone's asked, Annika's asked, what's the general feeling towards placements of mirrors around the house? Is it good to have them and where not to have them?
I don't know, Alex, but I know that if you have to be careful, I think you're gonna have to do research on that, Alex, because
Annika.
if you
Annika.
have mirrors facing mirrors, it can create portholes. So energetic portholes. So I think you have to be very careful. And one thing my mother always said was, try not to look at a mirror at the night time, because well, I'm not going to go too much into it. But Alex, just do some research on it and
Don't go too much into it because I want to get I
yeah.
don't want any nightmares tonight.
Yeah, but yeah, I think I've told you what I know, Alex. I think the rest I would say just do some research on it. Now, creating a sacred space is also in your body and your mind. And one of the most important things about creating a sacred space is like actually sanctifying what you eat. I was in funny enough, in Bali, of all places, at probably one of the most expensive hotel in Bali. And my friend happens to be the spa manager in that side of the earth there. And I think it's the Pacific. And she said, oh, let's all go out for a meal. Now, I'm not one for eating out because I'm just very sensitive. And of course I'm vegetarian. And so I tried to limit the damage by just having some nachos and some, tomatoes and some cucumber. But that night I had these terrible nightmares. And I noticed that as time goes on, I'm very, very sensitive. A couple of years ago, I had to do a talk at Parliament, and it was a very long day. And my sister said, look, you've got to eat something. So I thought, well, what's the lesser of the evil? Let's have a pizza. Service was great. Food was great. I thought I'd offered it just to sanctify it and express my gratitude. But that night, I could feel what the cook was thinking and feeling when he or she was cooking the meal. So what the Vedas say is that what you eat has an impact on your consciousness, sometimes on a subtle level, sometimes on a very gross level. So it's really important to think about what you're putting in your body, because of course in the Vedic tradition we believe the body is a temple, and it houses that which is sacred, our soul and the super soul. So we want to be really careful about what we eat, and if we're cooking at home, high vibrational foods, where we can offer them on the altar, and that usually clears. When I say high vibrational foods, I mean foods that come from non-violent sources, such as vegetarian meals.
Yeah.
The scriptures. Did you want to say something, Sarge, before I move on?
No. That was all really, really, really helpful. Nita's got a question about what your opinion is on ritual and sacred spaces during menstruation.
Yeah, so that's a very Hindu question. Often in the Hindu traditions, when women are menstruating, their vibrational energy changes, and it depends on how people treat it. I mean, some people just kind of treat it like, oh, it's dirty and keep away from the altar. And then there's the other view that menstruation is considered an act of a woman releasing whatever she needs to release on a monthly cycle. So usually in the temple standard for pujaris is that they refrain for 3 days until and then thereafter they'll wash their hair, and they'll once they're clean and clear, then they'll carry on with the worship. There's a lot of research on that, Nita, as well, but that's what I've been told, and that's what I followed. Now, look, if you're a mother and there's nobody else to do the cooking or the offering, it can be challenging. And I think we just have to, what they say in what Srila Prabhupada tells us is time, place, and circumstance. You have to adjust. I hope that answers your question, Nita.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Hopefully that answers your question, Nita. Please let us know if you have any further questions or would like us to dive into that a bit more. Did you want to continue, Nandarane?
Yes, yeah, thank you. So, sacred spaces, are spaces around us. When we think about the Bhagavad-gita and we think about the historical influence of Maharaj Kuru, the Battle of Kurukshetra was on Kurukshetra, and Maharaj Kuru planted in that space all good virtues, and therefore only that which is good is sustained. And that's a little bit like the soul. The soul is sustained and nurtured through values and virtues that nourish the spirit towards love. Now, in the scriptures, there are two accounts. One account of Lord Varaha. He fights with this demon called Hiranyaksha because Hiranyaksha has violated Bhumi, Mother Earth. This is another cycle, because the Vedic tradition has 4 cycles: Satya Yuga, Dwapar Yuga, Treta Yuga, and at the moment we're in Kali Yuga. But in another time, space and dimension, Bhumi falls into the depths of the dark ocean, and she falls off her axis due to exploitation and excessive irresponsible use of the resources. So one of the Vedic views and teachings are that actually everything around us, especially Bhumi, is sacred, and therefore we need to be very careful about how we use her resources. The Bhagavatam talks about excessive extraction of crude oil, imbalances the earth's axis. So, this is something that we really need to think about. And then in the Bhagavatam, there's another story of Maharaj Prithu. And he gets quite angry with Bhumi because she's holding back the grains and there's starvation going on. And she's saying, well, grains come from expressing gratitude to, Mother Earth, the wind, the rain, all of that. And when people stop offering sacrifices of gratitude, then the grains don't come. So something we have to be also thinking about is how are we contributing to the sacredness of Mother Earth, because already the researchers, the environmentalists, the scientists are all saying that we could be experiencing world hunger by 2030, which is not far away. So the Vedas give us lots of examples of what happens and the crisis and the suffering that happens when irresponsible leaders extract and take too much from Mother Earth, which, in the Vedic tradition, as soon as you get up, you pay your obeisances to Mother Earth as an act of gratitude, to say, even the thought that I'm walking over you, thank you for allowing me to do that. So how do you keep your aura and energy clean? Well, one of the things you do is you avoid anger and intense emotions, because when you experience anger, intense emotions, it will probably create holes in your aura. So you don't want to do that. You want to avoid anger. And I know it's easily said, I often lose my rag and I think, why did I do that? So it's very hard. Sometimes you are compelled to behave in that way, but you just want to be mindful of that because you want to keep that sacred energy of yours clean, so it's not violated by other unclean energies. And then clearing any traumas. People. Your mind, your soul is a sacred space because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says this verse, Jeto Darpana Marjanam, that the heart is like a mirror, but it's also like a camera, and every trauma you have or every slight you have, it's like takes this picture and it keeps it in the subconscious. And so we can pretend it's all over and I can laugh about it, but deep, when you're quiet moments, if you're feeling the memories and traumas, you want to find ways of releasing that either through journaling or therapy or deep surrender and prayer that this is I'm overwhelmed by this, and asking divinity, your power is greater than mine, please take it away. So if you carry negative energy around you, it infects everybody. And I just want to kind of express, and this is probably the final thing that I'm going to say today, is that in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it talks about the causes of devastation. When Brahma is creating the universe, he creates all different types of living entities, but he also creates these thought forms, these demons called irreligion, falsity, bluffing, cheating, lust, anger, greed, envy, hypocrisy, quarreling, harsh speech, fear, doubt, excessive pain. These 14 are, we can't see them, we feel them, we experience them. And if we experience them in excess, then of course it's going to have, I'm trying to find the right word, kind of lodge you out of some kind of balance. It's going to imbalance you. And then, of course, other things like insensitivity and lack of gratitude have a huge impact. I was surprised when I read that because, I thought they were just things, but they are actually energies and thought forms rather than something that you can't tangibly experience or see, but you do experience it. So I kind of wanted to leave you with that when there's an excess of that, the bluffing, the cheating, the lying, the lust means, I'm hankering for something that I really want. And when I don't get it, I feel disappointed. So when I get disappointed, then I get angry. So you want to be thinking about those kind of things that actually cause devastation in your sacred space. So thank you so much for listening to me, Saj. I've rattled on.
No, it's brilliant. Really brilliant. I think there were some really wonderful tips in there. I think if you were speaking to someone who's new to creating a sacred space in their home, and they've not created, they don't have an altar, or they've not really taken any of the practices that you mentioned, it's their first foray into it. Where's the best place to start? Would you say it's just the simple things like you said about clearing the energy, having the cleanliness, decluttering, all of those types of things, or?
Yeah, just starting as as we've said earlier, be aware of the space. Does it need decluttering? Does it need revamping? Does it just need a lick of paint? Maybe,
not wearing shoes in a sacred space, someone
oh
said.
yes, of course. I was going to mention that. Trying to avoid bringing shoes in. I think there's a lot out there that will tell you about clearing. Feng shui, vastu, all of those things.
Yeah.
I mean, the point is keep it simple, keep it light, keep it
Yeah.
clear, and the things that you have control over are the chanting. You have control because sometimes in Vastu they'll say, "Well, your house is facing that way,
Yeah.
and the bathroom it shouldn't be there," and all of those heavy constructive things that we can't do anything about. So the only thing that can really transcend all of that is chanting, and sometimes having kirtan in your house so that the sound vibration and energy, and having an altar. They say that simply by having an altar in your house and your sincere prayer and raising vibration, because love always overpowers any negativity. There is nothing stronger than love. And so when we understand that and we are inculcating that within ourselves. Now, if we're having challenging experiences, one of the things we may have to do is just do an internal excavation and think about, what kind of thoughts are going on in my head, because it sometimes isn't other people infecting the environment. It could be our thoughts as well. So I think
Yeah.
that's really important to think about. The other thing, Sarge, is somebody made a question there. Yeah, I think Nita, look, the other side of the well-being about menstruation is that women actually need those 3 days to just rest, and that's about honoring the female body and not seeing it as a negative. I think things have just been misconstrued over time. But yes, the body is a temple. Women are considered the personification of Lakshmi Devi. So I think those 3 days I would see as an opportunity to just honor yourself, and it is always about intention. There's something, somebody had a point and I've just lost it because yeah, look, Rena asked a comment about, the evil eye or nazar. Uh, Sacred energy has the power, love always has the power to transcend something. If you feel you've had a psychic attack or something, something that's made you uncomfortable, usually there's something in us that it's hooked into. So what I would say that when something like that happens, go deep within and start clearing your own energy. Yeah, because where there is light and there's purity, it cannot stick.
Yeah.
Anything else, Saj?
No, I think for me, that's there's a lot to go on there. I have pictures of deities in my home here. I've got a couple of framed pictures of deities, but someone said to me, if you do have like an altar of deity, they should be like solid, like small, like metal ones. Like they shouldn't be hollow. Is that a thing?
Uh, I don't know about hollow, but deities are made of either wood, metal, stone. Um, I would, you know what? I wouldn't get too much into, whether it's right
That's
or wrong, because
quite a specific question. Yeah, it's quite.
yeah, it's the representation of divinity, isn't it?
Yes.
If we start poking holes in it, it's going to affect our worship, because actually, when
Yeah.
you look at divinity, divinity is Brahman. It's everywhere and everything and everyone, but
Yeah.
also divinity is within our heart and in the person. So when we are, the deity is a vehicle for us to begin a personal relationship, a loving relationship with the divinity.
Great. Thank you, Nandarane. Someone also asked, which direction should our altar face? This is again a specific question, but I've
Yeah.
heard in the Hindu tradition, especially, it's like you should face east, isn't it? Or
I think it's east or northeast, something like
yeah,
that. But that's the ideal. But if you don't, you just you use
yeah,
the space you have.
yeah. Does anyone have any more questions or reflections? You're welcome to unmute yourselves if you've got any reflections on this evening's conversation to share. Um, please
Yeah,
feel free.
Saj. Hi, it's Anita here. Hare Krishna.
Hi,
Uh,
Anita. Very
yeah,
good.
hi. I just wanted to say, doesn't it depend on where you are in your journey? If you're quite new, then do these things really matter as long as you've got a nice space in your home to kind of come back to and feel relaxed in? Um,
I think that's
so if
what's
you're living
most
in a
important.
small flat, you've only got
Yeah.
four walls, you're not going to have a space to have all these things. And if you're new on your journey, then do you really think about all these evil eyes and well, you don't, do you? Doesn't it just depend on where you are on your journey?
I think, well, we'll both, I guess we can both get into it, Nandarane, but I think, yeah, of course, it's dependent on your journey, your environment, and your space. Some people have a little altar on their bedside table, for example,
Yeah, and
or
also if you're quite new to spirituality, like you, I don't think one needs to really worry about such things as like having uh, all these things in place at such a quick stage. Doesn't
yeah.
it come gradually? I know the Rani Mataji is probably the expert here, but doesn't it come in gradual spaces? I don't remember having a temple for a long time in my home,
I
just
think,
because I just didn't feel like
I
I
don't think
needed
that,
it.
I don't think this session is about people having a temple, Anita. I think this session is about being aware of your space, whether it's a small space, a flat, whether it's a mansion, wherever it is. It's about creating a space where you walk in and you feel happy and you feel at peace. And this session is about making awareness of the things that we can do to make it sacred. And I
yeah.
think I think you've raised a really important question, because if that's how you've understood it, maybe others might have understood it as well. So we just want to make it really, really clear that this session is really about making an awareness. Now, what I found is that when you have an altar, it doesn't have to be a big altar, like Asaj said. When I'm traveling, I have a mini altar by my bedside in the hotel room. So, but it's a space that helps me to concentrate on what it is that I want to focus on. I think it's just being aware and not feeling helpless when you are in a certain space. You can actually do something about it, and I think that's the point for today, really.
No, thank you for clarifying that, Nandirani, because maybe I got it wrong.
No, I don't. Yeah, I
Thank
don't
you.
think you got it wrong. I think it was just a different take, and also where people on this conversation in this chat right now, everyone's in a different stage of their spiritual journey, and they're also yeah on different paths. So for them, there's I don't know how many people are on this. How many of us are there today? However many of us there are, we've all got our own versions of a sacred space, My version, my sacred space would look completely different, not completely different, but it would be different to yours or Nandarane's or any of the others who are on here. So 53, thank you, Nita.
I think
53. So there are 53 sacred spaces joined virtually
yeah.
by this internet connection this evening. So which is
I,
wonderful.
I think really to sum up, today is just an awareness of, because you were all very good on the first question when I opened up, about spaces and picking up on spaces that make you feel uneasy and spaces that bring joy and happiness and peace. And it's really about us creating that. Like some of you said, you're in the London Underground, you're at work, sometimes we're having challenging environments that we might be working in, traveling in. You want to walk through that door and just feel relief, and it's really about giving you those strategies to be able to do that.
Thank you so much. Like I'll give a little example of how a workspace has been given like a little sacred touch. I live in a flat, so the living room dining room and kitchen are essentially in one one room. And downstairs there's a little cupboard, and that was just full of old things. So we cleared it out, and we put a desk in it, so it could be a workspace where I could write and focus on my work. And there's a window in there, and we just bought a pastel colored painting of Radha and Krishna, and we hung it on the wall, and then we got a little orchid plant, and we just put it on the table. And then we've got a little yellow blind, cloth blind, which is a similar color to the pastels on the painting, and we've put it on the window. And just immediately now that room, that it's a little tiny little cupboard, but it's turned into a workspace. But it's just been given a little sacred touch, you know. So it can be something just really small. Like I really liked the idea of having flowers and candles in the space, and plants. Someone mentioned plants as purifying. Those little touches go a really long way. So much to think about, actually. Lots to reflect on, and also lots to implement in our own lives for just helping us to create better energies and better atmospheres so that we can continue to progress on our spiritual journeys and thrive. My uncle has a bit of OCD, and he has this mantra, he has this phrase where he says mess is stress. So he's always like clean, and my family think I've got a weird obsession with the Hoover, because I find it quite therapeutic to just hoover and get rid of the dust and stuff. But yeah, but I found it really helpful, all of your insights and tips. So thank you so much, Nandarane.
Thank you, Saj. And I think the bottom line is, if you're feeling stuck in your life, you're feeling some kind of unease, you've got strategies now to go away today and implement them, you know?
Yeah. And like, it's just, I think what you said just a minute ago when we were speaking with Anita, it's like having that perception of sacred space and just beginning to associate what that might be and what it might look like. Me speaking to my friend Benoit a couple of hours ago, he immediately said to me, "Oh, I never actually thought about it in that way, because we have all these other spaces in the house to work, to eat, to sleep, and I never thought about having like a space just to connect with myself and to like decompress or whatever." So that's planted a little seed. Yeah, so that's what we want to do. Yay! Thank you for your insights. Feeling inspired.
Hiya. Sorry, can I just ask one question?
Please.
Yeah. We were talking about, obviously, could you just talk a little bit more about vegetarian food? Because obviously we're vegetarian, but someone actually put a question up regarding eggs. Could you give me you or yourself could give me a view on eating eggs, please? Because some people some people are still casting eating eggs as vegetarian.
I
And
saw that question I think that was from Drishti, who mentioned whether eggs, what the take on eggs was, but I'm not really a professional in this department.
Yeah, I think what I can say is, I think people often get a bit mixed up with that, because, you know, what do we offer on the altar to thank God, you know? And usually Bhagavad-gita says things that are in the mode of goodness. So eggs, according to the Vedic tradition, they're considered a fetus, or a sort of a menstruation, you know, whatever it is. So it's one or the other. And so that's why they're not eaten or used as an offering. They're not considered as we would with vegetables and beans and things like that. So I hope that answers your question, because some people think that egg is vegetarian, but in the Vedic view, eggs are not. And as I've just told you, how they're seen. I hope that clarifies it, Bhavna, for you.
yeah, thank you.
I can share a really good scrambled tofu recipe with anyone who wants. But that's thank you for clearing that up, Nandarane.
Oh, everyone's most welcome.
Any other questions or reflections anybody like to share? anything about their sacred spaces? James, I hope you've got some tips for your home with your children. I know it's difficult with kids to try and keep the place clean and tidy. It's almost like try not to use plastic. Yes, thanks. Okay, great.
Hare Krishna, I have a question, please.
Thank you. Who's joined? Please.
So my question is, we have a small mandir at home with a damaged idol. What's your view around keeping that, and does it alter the energy overall if we still worship, or is there a special kind of worship?
Well, Rena, there are two schools of thoughts, and you must decide on what sits with you comfortably. The first school of thought is for some that if a deity is damaged, they usually submerge it in the Ganges or the Yamuna River. Then there's the other school of thought that the presence of divinities in everything, and if we continue to still worship it, then that's fine as well. Some people have a view that, you know, it might bring bad luck or whatever, but I think in anything that you worship with your heart, especially divinity,
Yeah, that
I
resonates with me
doubt it
more.
would. Yeah, I doubt it
Yeah.
would bring bad luck, because if we see the perfection in the imperfection, that is also good consciousness, you know, because in this world there's always somebody's going to have a view of why it's not right, or why it can be better, or why, you know, you don't want to kind of go down that route. You've got to go down you know, you've got to, like, this is what Krishna tells Arjuna, you know, I've told you everything. Now you go ahead and decide. Don't have an argument with me about it. You got it there, and you go away, and, you know. So I think you've said that you feel that the second bit is,
Yeah, I just feel like if we are all living in the same home and somebody breaks a leg, you don't just throw them out of the house. You know, you still care for them, and in fact, even more so. And so it just doesn't sit right with me to have Krishna idol there and it's damaged, so that's why you then replace it. I don't know. But then on the other side, I've heard lots of people say it's bad luck, and yeah, so it's just a bit confusing.
Yeah, I think you have to decide whether you're going to see it from a place of fear or from a place of love, because your intention will always be, you know, around divinity and your connection with divinity. So I think that's what it is. You know, you've got to clear the doubt within your own mind, and stay with it.
Sure. Thank you, Mataji.
So I'll give you an example, Reena. When Srila Prabhupada, I think they were looking for deities for Radha Landaneshwara, and there was a chip on one of the deities, and so the Hindu person who had it shipped didn't want to use it anymore, because, you know, their belief was that there was something wrong with it. And Srila Prabhupada went with the devotees in a van, and Srila Prabhupada said, "Thank you very much. We'll have the deities." Put them in the van, and they scarpered with them. You know, so you know, when you think about Srila Prabhupada's example, you know, he didn't see what was wrong. He saw what was right with it. And I think if we have that consciousness in life, you know, we're going to go towards compassion. We're going to go through understanding. We're going to go through more acceptance than somebody who brings about fear and negativity and doubt and questioning, you know. So I'll leave you with that thought, Reena.
Thank you very much.
You decide what you think is right for you.
Thank you.
And stick with it and have faith with it, you know.
Thank
So
you, Hare
wonderful.
Krishna.
Thank you, Nandarane, for sharing that. That was such a wonderful reflection. Got some really nice feedback in the chat. Thank you for a thought-provoking session. Sushma loved it. Very good session. Absolutely great. Thank you very much. So thanks for coming back, Nandarane. and speaking with us again.
It's such a pleasure, Saj. I did the second part. I think somebody else was, I think Prayag did the second part of the forgiveness. That was great.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
is so close to my heart. I'm so fascinated about this, you know,
Yeah, you can see you're really passionate about it, and it's great because it's rubbed off on us now. And like, I'm sure everyone else, all 53 who've joined this evening, will be thinking about what we can do with our own spaces and environments, internally and externally, to help create more sacred spaces. Lots more messages coming through.
there's an interesting question, Saj, and it's from,
Crystals.
is it Nicolette? Oh, I didn't see the crystal one. What's your thoughts
Oh,
on crystal?
Nicoletta, yeah, how to keep the altar vibration alive. All right, what we'll do is have these last two questions, and then we'll have
Yeah,
to.
because we're over time now. Look,
Just as a heads up, there will be a recording available of this class on the Think Gita YouTube page, so you'll be able to find it.
so what's the question, Saj?
So one question we had is thoughts on crystals and recommending which ones to keep in the home and where. Like that, you could do a whole session on.
Yeah, I think Priya, just do some research, and you know what little I know about crystals is, you go with what you're drawn to. So I think again, it's your choice. And then there's a question here: how do you keep the altar vibration alive? I heard once that if you don't keep having certain attention to the divine, it will go away. Yeah, I think anything you neglect disappears, doesn't it? So having an altar means we sustain a daily practice. So it's a really great question. It's anything that gets dusty and neglected for a while, it's almost like that energy leaves, and that's what we've been talking about today: the energy that brings unease, and then the energy that brings divinity and
Someone's asked a question specific, well, the same person actually, Nicoletta, with regards to deities when they're going away for long periods, like holidays, or if they're going away for work for the rest of the day, when they usually do like morning and evening offerings. And what are your thoughts on that?
Well, it depends what size they are, Nicolette. I mean, when I go traveling, I have small deities, so I may take some of them with me and then leave the rest for my family to look after. Some people may put the deities to rest and take a photograph of them instead, because it might not be practical to carry them around. So, you have that conversation, that exchange with your deity that, I'm having to go traveling, but I'm going to take this photograph of you and I'm going to worship you in that way. Or you ask a friend to look after them. Do what feels at ease for you, because the whole thing about, so this is what I learned many, many years ago, the whole thing about worship and creating that sacred space is you take the sacred space within you wherever you're going. And if you're creating a sacred space, it should be light-hearted and joyful and easy. When worship becomes burdensome, then there's something missing. We've lost something in that process. So I would say just work out what feels right to you, Nicolette. Each one of us have a personal, interesting experience, and just try and offer, again, time, place, and circumstance. Always apply that. Be practical.
That's a great note to wrap on. Time, place, and circumstance. Nicoletta is really grateful. Thank you for the priceless tips. Thank you for the questions, Nicoletta. Thank you for everyone who's joined. This really has been a group session today. I think it's one of the busiest I've seen the chat box, which is really good. So we really appreciate all of your reflections, questions, and insights that you shared as well over the course of this evening. Please join me in giving a big thank you and a warm, I was about to say welcome, a warm goodbye to Nandarane for now. And we'll be back.